all picked. I'd ask kids. You say, "Oh yeah, you know where I like those. You guys used to call them something in the library where
Cubicles?
Huh?
The cubicles?
Cubicle in the library." He said, "I like to go there," and he said, "In fact, I even I leave my books there at times, because I go in there and I can study so and so there, and I'm not bothered. I'm close to my references, except." So that was one that some kid, and then there'd be other kids that like to study in small groups. You know, they didn't want to go to large. There'd be 2 or 3 of them that want to study together. So all of these things that came back from this guy's lectures, a lot of them took advantage of these things because they felt that if they did, they wouldn't have to work as hard in the classroom, which is true. They didn't realize it, but it was true. So anyway, so what do? I arrange that all freshmen were to come 1 week earlier in this fall before the school opened. They didn't have anything in football because freshmen were not eligible for athletics at that time. So they'd come in, and I had him offer this as a course. In fact, I even got that to be considered a 1 hour of credit, not to give them 3 hours of credit for it, but it was worth something for them to study it. And they did. And I think a lot of kids benefited from it. In fact, I've had kids come back and tell me that they never had anything like that. You know, nobody in high school teaches you unless there's a good school. And then they did it. And so that's what happened, Dan. We start doing things. We got guys like Alan Page, his episode. You know, at the end of the semester, he had Dean's List average. When I called him in after he had the D's and F's, he said, "Well, Mr. Chico, our first game is against Wisconsin, the first game of that year. You can look at it, and they won. But they also had to leave on Friday to get up to Wisconsin to play the game on Saturday." And he says, "Well, I missed an exam on Friday, and that was mid-semester exam. I had to take it. I got permission to take it over, but the fact that I got a 0 in the course, a failing grade, forced me to make it up." So he had to make it up. So I made up the course, and I got an A in it. But I said, "He gave you an F 1 week and an A the following week." He said, and that's what happened. And he did the same thing with those D's. He had papers to turn in, which he didn't turn in. When he comes back from Wisconsin, after a few days, he turns in the paper, and he's back on track. So there's a lot of things like that you have to look for. So I had it so that anybody that would ever get an F would immediately come to our office. And our office always had 2 or 3 people. I had people like Dave Strabauer, a guy like Bill Leahy. Bill Leahy was a graduate student. He was working on his PhD when he worked for me. And others like him. And I had to meet and keep abreast of it and so on and so. That's the way you run that program. Know what troubles they have them meet with professors that know what the hell or somebody that knows what that thing is all about, and help them overcome whatever problems they have with their teacher. A lot of kids have trouble in a course because they don't understand what the hell they're talking about.
So what? So it was really the first kind of program anywhere.
There was never any school in the country that offered me even 2 minutes of help.
And then did they then come to you
Oh,
afterwards?
no. What happened was they didn't automatically come to me because they didn't know what the hell Notre Dame was doing. But they found out what Notre Dame was doing because Sports Illustrated told them. At one during those years, Dan, you may not remember, of course, depending on whether you religiously read Sports Illustrated. But during the early 60s, 65, 6, 7, there was an article that appeared, well, it was more than just one article, there were several, appeared on the Black Athlete, that a lot of them were finishing their eligibility, so to speak, and not getting degrees. And they felt that they were abused. You know, a kid is a hell of a fullback or a good running back or whatever the hell they were being recruited for, but were not very good students. Well, they would arrange for those kids to go to class, get the grades that they needed to make in class, and be eligible to play, and yet not eligible to graduate. I found that out talking to a guy like Alan Page. Alan Page came to me after he graduated, wanted me to write a letter of recommendation for him to present to the Minnesota Vikings. I think that's who he was drafted by. He wanted to be excused to take courses in law so he can become a lawyer. And he would do that during the off season. That was easy for me to recommend. He was a good student, graduated with high honors. I would certainly recommend him. I mean, he can handle it. How do I know he could handle it? Because he's smart. You know, and I was telling the truth. And he comes in the office to get me to write that letter, but he comes in with two other kids, also black, and both of them from Michigan State. And shit, we just played them. They were opposite each other on a football field for that 10-10 tie, if you remember. And all of a sudden, I don't know what possessed me, Dan. I'm talking to Al Page here, and all of a sudden I turned to the other two. I said, well, what are you guys going to be doing on your off? I thought maybe they may have been the ones kind of get Alan Page thinking of the off season. And he says, well, Mr. Chico, I'd like to tell you, but we're not going to go to...
He's still yakking and yakking?
He's asking me these damn questions, and he's getting them all down, it looks like, on that tape of his. Anyway, the long and short of it is, I find out that neither one of them had a degree from Michigan State. And I asked him, well, how do you know? He says, well, we went during graduation. We didn't get any invitations to the graduation to give to our parents. And when we asked our coaches, they told us to go to the department chairman to get permission, invitations or whatever the hell they were supposed to get. And they go there, and the chairman of the departments, whatever department they're in, says, well, Joe Dokes, I can't let you go because you're not going to graduate. What do you mean I'm not going to graduate? I never flunked anything. I played football all 4 years I've been here. How come I didn't? He said, well, for one thing, you took 4 courses in football. You got offensive football, defensive football, offensive this, defensive that. You can, those are not courses in your major. We can use them as elective courses, but that doesn't qualify you to get a degree in any department in our office. And the same thing for both kids. One kid wasn't any higher than a second semester sophomore. And so that article, when I read it, hit home with me because I saw that with just two other kids. And if we'd asked any one of those black kids that didn't graduate and didn't get a degree, they'd have a good reason why they didn't. You say to yourself, Dan, you played, you finished all your eligibility to play athletics. How come you don't have a degree? You have to have an answer. Nobody ever had a other than maybe now Sports Illustrated is going to get these answers. Well, the schools themselves realize what the hell happened. They're going to get, and I know exactly what happened. Those courses are no longer called academic football or whatever it is. They get these courses that are watered down. They really don't even mean crap, you know? And they might even get credit for those crap schools. Either that or offer in their department a degree in some meaningless field. I don't know. I mean, I can't tell you, but there are courses where guys are getting degrees because they took courses in gym training. Well, I guess you say to yourself, somebody's got to learn the gym training. Where the hell did the gym trainers come from before we offered this course? Well, some of them were just athletic. I mean, they got other degrees and
Right.
they just went the other direction. You know, they took the academic route. They didn't take the eligibility route, don't you see?
Mm-hmm.
So there are schools even today. I mean, there are kids that are playing right now, and they tell you that their graduation rate is 0. The kids that graduate playing basketball, a lot of them that playing basketball are graduating, and then they're going to Italy to play basketball or going over there to play basketball. You think they're going to ask whether they got a degree or not? They could care less, as long as they played their sport. So that's it. Then when you asked me what did the other schools do, and before you know it, and they read this, they read where Notre Dame was given an accolade of Father Joyce coming up with this scheme of academic advising. 10 years before any of them even gave any thought to that. What possessed them to do that? I can't tell you for certain. I don't think that they know for certain. What Father anticipated was that in the early 60s, TV, the NCAA and TV dictated what the schools were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
The schools had to have good football players to play football and have the school rank in football high enough that the different networks would want them to be shown on TV, because that's how they make their money. A TV sells their advertisement by the number of people that watch. And the number of people who will watch Notre Dame play Michigan State. And they saw that. I wasn't paying any attention to shit like that. I still don't. But at the same time, so I think that those two guys, they may be priests, but have more goddamn common sense in their heads than most intellectuals that claim they're smart. I was lucky enough to have worked with some of them, with two of them, worked for both of them. And I never thought of, How come I didn't think of academic advising? If you were teaching anywhere, I'm not sure you'd come up with academic advising. Because you always measure by yourself. Would I need that? I don't think I would need it. That's why Polly, Della,